If you want some FIFA 23 coins, please check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use code REMA you can get yourself a 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, we're going to be looking at some 4-4-2 custom tactics and player instructions. Now the 4-4-2 is a formation that's always been pretty solid in FIFA, but after the update where they've buffed pace on controlled and explosive players, it's become a lot better in FIFA 23. Now just before we get started guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you guys could drop this video a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into it. So as always guys, for defensive style I suggest balance. This is because then you can press when you want to press and drop off when you want to drop off. Also there is a stamina drain when you use pressure tactics, so I don't really think they're worth it, and honestly I think balance gives you a much better control when you are defending. Moving on to width, I like to have this on 42 because again, people like to play very narrow in FIFA 23, so it's important you have the middle of the pitch covered, but having it on 42 also gives you that width when you are defending, so if somebody does try and play it down the wings you are able to prevent it. Now for depth I have this on 54. Before the patch it was obviously a lot higher, but now it's important to lower your depth because of these through balls and the explosive and controlled players. So lowering your depth to about 54 keeps a nice defensive line which isn't too far back, so you can still apply pressure, but it also makes it more difficult for somebody to just through ball you every single time. Now for build up play I like to have this on balance because again, fast build up is good for some formations where the midfield is very congested and you have a lot of players there, but for a formation like the 4-4-2 which is very direct, I think just having balance is a little bit better because sometimes your options can be limited, so it's important you're not always trying to force the play, so balance is a little bit better. You can obviously still play fast, but again it's down to like a personal pace then instead of forcing a quick play all the time. Now for chance creation I suggest direct passing as always because it's the only one which gives you the correct movement out of your players. If you look at the diagram in the bottom right, you can see all the white dots are actually moving around in a dynamic motion. This doesn't happen with any other setting. For example, balance, that they move very in a very static manner. They don't look to create chances, so direct passing is always important. Now for attacking width I like to have this on 47 because it's 5 higher than my defensive width, which means we defend quite compact and narrow, but then we can attack a little bit wider. It's also not too wide where you're forced down the wings every time, and it's also a nice width where you can play through the middle as well, so it gives you a nice balance where you can play narrow or wide if you want to. Now for players in box I like to have this on 6. This is down to preference. This is just because I like to have some players in the box, but I don't like to overcommit every player, so I'm in trouble if I lose the ball. Corners and free kicks are pretty similar. I just have them on 2 because again I like to have some players in the box when I'm crossing, but again I don't want to be countered all the time, so I find this to be a very nice balance. So for your 2 strikers, this is mainly down to preference. At the moment I'm just using Leao and Ronaldo, but preferably you'd have a left-footed striker on the left and a right-footed striker on the right, and obviously you want these strikers to be quick and able to finish your chances because again these stats are important in FIFA 23, so you can use whoever you want at striker, just make sure they have the correct movement and finishing. For your left mid and right mid, this is also pretty much down to preference. I'm using Jota and Chiesa. It's just important that these players have a decent defensive work rate because obviously in this formation they do need to defend a little bit, so Jota is a high player, which means he contributes a lot in attack and contributes a lot in defense. Chiesa is a high medium, which again isn't perfect, but he still somehow finds himself in the correct defensive positions. You don't really want to go for like a high low in this position, otherwise your midfielders can commit too much and it leaves you very open at the back, so just remember that guys. Now for your right centre mid I suggest a more box to box player, for example Renato Sanchez, and it's absolutely crucial that these have a high work rate because they're the ones that transition from defense to attack, so it's important that they have the work rates that allow them to do that. If you lose the ball when you're going forward with this player, the high defensive work rate means they do track back into position. Now for your left centre mid you could go for another box to box, but what I like to do is go for a more defensive player to give me extra solidarity in this formation. So I'm using Patrick Vieira, which I think is very good good in this game, and preferably you'd have like a medium high work rate player in this position, but you could also go for like a medium, which is what Vieira is, or even like a high, which is like what Sanchez is. So this one's a bit more down to preference, but as long as this player is more defensive minded, it's not too important. Now for your left back and right back, this is down to preference, but I prefer players that are better on the ball. So I'm using Hernandez and Hakimi, and I find this important because sometimes in this formation, you find that you have to play the ball out with your fullbacks quite a lot of the time. So for example, having a player that is good on the ball, I find to be very useful because it can help you out of some sticky situations. If you have a more clunky player like Kyle Walker, you can't always do that. So I think it's important that you have fullbacks that are pretty good on the ball. But again, it's down to preference. If you want more defensive fullbacks, go ahead, that is absolutely fine. And obviously your two centre backs need to be as good as possible. I'm just using Varane and Kimpembe because I can't be bothered to spend all my coins at the moment, but they still do the job. So just make sure your centre backs are as good as you can possibly make them. And yeah, let's move on to player instructions. So for both strikers at the moment, I'm using stay central and get in behind. This is because you don't need them to drift off to the wings because you've got a left mid and right mid for that. So keeping them on stay central keeps your attack nice and organised. Getting behind just makes them create the best attacking runs possible, because sometimes if you have them on mixed attack, they don't move in the way that they should. What you can do if you want more of a balance is just switch one of your strikers to mixed attack instead of getting behind. That could give you a better balance, but at the moment I'm just using getting behind on both of them. Now on your right centre mid, the one that is more of a box to box player, I suggest having him on cover centre. This is because you want him to cover the middle of the pitch when you are defending, because again, you've already got two wide players to cover the wing position, mine being Chiesa and Hakimi and Jota and Hernandez. So you don't need them to cover the wings, you need them to cover the centre, because that is the space that needs marking more than anything, especially when these places are already covered on the pitch. And we leave him on balanced attack because again, we don't just want him to defend. Like I said, the high work rate allows him to defend and attack, which is very important for a box-to-box midfielder. So because we have him on balance, the high work rate still allows him to defend properly, and it also allows him to transition the attack from the defense all the way up to the strikers. So it's very important, like I said, to have that high work rate for this reason. Now your left centre mid, mine being Vieira, is a more stay back player, even though he does contribute to the attack. So I just leave him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. This doesn't mean I can't go forward with him, it just means as a default he's a bit further back than the rest of the team to add extra defensive support. This is important because sometimes if you lose the ball you can be left very open, so it can actually be really helpful having like a midfielder like Vieira to just break up the play if you do end up losing the ball. We also have him on cover centre because again, similar to Renato Sanchez, we need him to cover the centre as we've already got the wings covered. Now for your left mid and right mid, I suggest come back on defence and get into the box for cross. Now this isn't a park the bus tactic, I'm going to explain it now. So the reason we have them on come back on defence and defensive support is to make the formation defend as it should. Now sometimes if you have the 4-4-2 on the basic defensive support on your right mid and left mid, it can feel more like a 4-2-4 instead of a 4-4-2. So it's important to have it on come back on defence on both your right mid and your left mid, because again it makes it defend as a 4-4-2 and it adds extra defensive support, which is very important in this game. Get into the box for cross means they will get into the box. This doesn't mean you have to cross the ball to them, it just means they actually make those runs so you can play the ball to them. So it's not all about crossing, it just improves their runs. Now this is why I said like a good defensive work rate is important as well, because if you have them on comeback on defense and they don't have the best work rates for attack and defense, sometimes you'll notice the formation can be a little bit flat. So Jota is a high, which means he'll transition when we're defending and also go forward when we are attacking. So that's why it works very well. Now for your left back and right back, I suggest just leaving them on stay back while attacking, because you don't really need them to go down the wing since you've already got wide players. But if you really are struggling and you need extra support on the attack, you could flick them to balanced attack and maybe overlap. That just gives you extra width and more options in the attack. But I honestly don't think you need it on your left back and right back. If you want to trigger them to go forward, just do it manually with the left bumper or using the D-pad tactic. tactics for attacking fullbacks, and yeah, I think you're going to be fine. But yeah, these are my custom tactics for the 4-4-2. If you guys have enjoyed it or found it useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you all later. Peace.